It's today in EVE Online, May 4th, 2020. I am Adderall. You're with Caleb and Spod. How are you guys?
You.
So today is May 4th. They say, may the 4th be with you on this day if you're a Star Wars fan, which CCP did for us. I think they actually put something out here. Let's see if we can find it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's 4th day, and then it's Cinco de Mayo day.
That's right. Cinco de Mayo. It's tomorrow. It's a Mexican holiday in the United States. Where usually people go out and drink, but that's not going to happen this time. Just like St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo will probably be canceled, but probably still have a problem getting guacamole and chips. Okay, the current... let's have a look at how many people are playing EVE right now, because we have some server instability. Maybe that's not the right way to put it. Have DDoS attacks. We'll get into that in just a second. But as you can see, instead of the beautiful smooth curve that has players logging in and out, you have jagged edges everywhere. And that accounts for people just immediately being dropped from the game. But as you can tell, not everyone is dropped from the game at the same time. So these are like... variable people. They may be the same people over and over again, or they may be different people. It depends on the attacks. To combat this, CCP just has to put out information as they've been doing on the EVE forum posts. I think these are also replicated in Twitter under EVE status. So if you want to know, it's EVE_status. We'll give you the latest information on EVE Online servers. But we can see here, this is Tranquility DDoS, and it has yesterday and today's dates on it. So it's an ongoing difficulty logging in. They're sorry about that. They are working on the problem. I don't know what they can do against DDoS attacks in general, but that has caused connection instability. And this happens at a very bad time because people are basically in the abyss, which means when they are encouraged through an SP incentive to go into these dangerous areas, when they get disconnected, they end up being destroyed by the non-player characters that are incredibly aggressive. And potted too, right?
Yeah, you should look at the EVE Online status monitor on EVE Offline. That looks not normal.
Oh yeah, that is weird. Actually, let's look at kill boards real quick. If we look at, let's look at the latest. Yeah, Abyssal Space. I wonder how many people here got disconnected. Let's just go to Z Killboard. Okay, so this is the default. Something's going down Esoteria, it looks like. Yeah, we'll have to come back to that. We have some combat to announce in just a minute. I'm going to go to Esoteria first, though. I want to see if these pods all blowing up are just a small gang or if something's going on. Nah, it's a small gang running through Test Alliance, defending against what looks like Siege Green, coming through with bombers. It's like a bomber fleet, not a big deal. Okay. Let's go check the numbers in Dotland. The most violent regions in the last 24 hours. In Empire Space, we have the usual top three, the Forge, Lone Trek, and Domain. The Forge coming in at 3,384 ships destroyed. Lone Trek coming in second place at 3,054. And then Domain coming in at 2,635. That's quite a cliff there, but Lone Trek Still seeing a lot of activity. In nullsec, the most dangerous and violent places in the last 24 hours are Delve at 806 ships destroyed, Fountain at 703 ships destroyed, and then Providence at 600 ships destroyed. Delve is the home of the Imperium. Fountain is also part of the Imperium, but belongs essentially to the Initiative. And Providence is Provi block. People who've lived there a long time. So Provi is seeing a lot of activity these days. Most violent systems, nothing really in the last 3 hours, but the last 24 hours has been in Fountain. 7X TAC in Fountain saw a battle of 366 ships destroyed. It may not be one battle, but it may be 366 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. And then, well, this is very odd, but in Venal, in K3JR, you have only 85 ships destroyed, but you have 409 pods destroyed. The math doesn't add up unless... Well, we have to investigate because that's just too weird. But I'm thinking it is... The only way it could be a natural thing is if 25 hours ago, a bunch of ships destroyed, and then we're still in the 24th hour. For the pods to be destroyed. Therefore, the pods show up in the last 24 hours, but the ships actually blew up an hour before. That doesn't make much sense either. But let's have a look at what's going on there.
Well, this is something weird, like, it could be something, I don't know, technically related, right? So, if it's bots, and then because of connection issues, the ship gets destroyed, and then the bots pretty much leave the pod hanging, and then the pod gets destroyed later.
Well, it could also be pod deaths, right? Like they basically self-destruct their pods in order to travel somewhere.
Yeah, but you get my point, right? Either it could be suicide, but if it's a bot, right, and it gets destroyed but disconnected, the pod will be hanging in space. It won't be killed by an NPC. So it's pretty much up to a player to come around to actually clear it out.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it could have to do with the disconnects. That makes sense. But that's a ton of pods being destroyed. What we're seeing here is Trigger Happy collided against... Well, looks like a mismatch of Fraternity Black Legion. Yeah, it's a Black Legion. It's interesting to see them. There was a small fight in the last 24 hours. But I don't know. It doesn't account for that weirdness. Okay, let's go back. So yeah, weird. In Venal, 85 ships destroyed, 409 pods destroyed in the last 24 hours. Could possibly have to do with instability, server instability. All right, let's check on low sec, see if there's anything interesting going on there. You have a little bit of activity right now in Onenin. That's Lone Trek. 52 ships destroyed there. Could be a gate camp. That is a system that connects to nullsec. So it usually has some heavy activity. In the last 24 hours, Tama has seen 609 ships destroyed. And Onenin, 261 ships destroyed, and 52 of those have just been destroyed in the last 3 hours. Most violent systems in high sec. Wow. In the last 24 hours, the Niarja, that is a choke point between JITA and domain trade hubs, has seen 1,428 ships destroyed. That is by far more than JITA. 3 times what JITA's doing. JITA is at 483 ships destroyed. So pound for pound, Niarja is incredibly dangerous compared to JITA right now, or at least in the last 24 hours. That probably has to do with ganking and just all around gate camping. Not gate camping, but ganking inside of HiSec. And Audern has 579 ships destroyed. We checked on them recently, didn't we? And they were basically, it turned out that code was basically killing miners inside that area. I do want to look at Niarja. Anybody who's ever freighted stuff in EVE Online knows this system. This system and Udama are very dangerous systems. Let's duplicate this tab and go to that system here. Let's try that one more time. And this will give us an idea of when the activity happened. And I jammed up the browser. Let's try that again. Here we go. Yeah, you can see when there's a pattern of the same ship over and over again, those are the people who are being destroyed by code. Sorry, by the authorities, and they all belong to code. So you see Concord destroying code, which means these are the criminals. And
a lot of PH, right? A lot of pandemic.
Yeah, it's mostly code. If you look at the exact ships, the Veletars, which are actually frigates. No, they're corvettes.
It's new ships. But it's the same with, there's also a ton of pandemic war kills further down the page.
Well, what is going on here? They're using corvettes. They're using rookie corvettes, which means these things come equipped with all the basics. There's not enough damage here unless they're goofing around and trying to see how many corvettes they can get to gank small ships. So it looks like they took out this doesn't look right. I think they're horsing around. This may be just a fight between Horde and Code in frigate ships. Almost feels like some kind of...
Well, that bunch of Concord kills.
Yeah. I mean,
it's to do with messing around with the criminal timer system, I believe.
Are they trying to figure something out?
They're just undocking in a ship and being shot by Concord because they're still wanted. I can't remember how it works, but there's this. It's some kind of trick that gets Concord off you sooner or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember.
Wrecking Machine, Eve says they used the Veletars to pull Concord to distract them, to pull them to a different area. Concord goes there, reacts to those ships, destroys them, but then Concord doesn't, turns its back on the gates where the actual crime can happen, and it takes them a while to reform and to go back. So it's not a gank, it's basically a decoy.
Precursor to a gank, I suppose.
Yeah. So that's, but why so many? I didn't realize they would use so many to do that. But here's the actual gank you can see, and this is the traditional ganking ship, the Catalyst, because it has a tremendous amount of firepower for its size and cost. And Code is definitely operating there. And it looks like Horde is helping them. It would be too big a coincidence for them to be in the same ships. So none of this is unusual. This is normally what happens. Here's some of the victims, it looks like. Oh, they took down a bowhead. So that round of Catalyst took down that bowhead. Let's see if there was anything inside there. Just give you an idea of what they might have targeted. This bowhead came in at about 2 billion. And... Tempest and Services. Yeah. What's that?
There's also a freighter on by page 5.
Yeah, I don't see that bowhead carrying anything special. At least I didn't see there. And looking for a freighter. That's a lot of catalysts, right? It takes a...
And another Gank freighter, also in Nyarja.
Yeah, I think I saw this on the. Oh, here it is. So NPC, not NPC, but a player who belongs to an NPC corporation was destroyed in a Fenrir. That is a Minotaur freighter.
That looks like a Gank contract. I think he was set up. That plastic
that
wrap,
plastic wrap
indicates that was a courier, and that courier contract was probably put up for vastly more than it's worth.
So explain how that works, how you get baited into that sort of thing.
So essentially, somebody will put up a juicy-looking courier contract. It will be a decent size, well, not always, but a typical one like this one will be a decent size with quite a high collateral. The amount of money you have to sort of pay up front to do a courier mission. You get it back at the end, but it's like an insurance payment that you have to make.
But you have to make the delivery.
Put up, yeah, it's almost like an escrow. So if I want to move your priceless chandelier, I'm going to put it locked in your bank account the value of that chandelier in case I break it on the way.
Collateral.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they will put up an item, say in this case a Vex that's worth 34 million, but they'll put the collateral at something ridiculous, a few billion maybe. And then as soon as you accept that contract, because it'll have a nice reward and it will seem relatively normal apart from the high collateral, you will sort of be marked. Somebody will be monitoring that contract and notice that you've accepted it, so you're the guy to shoot. And then they'll be waiting for you along the route.
So they destroy you, and what? Are you out your collateral?
Yeah.
Yep. You can no longer finish the mission, so that money I put in your bank account to protect your chandelier is now yours. Although the box that said chandelier on it actually had, I don't know, a toilet roll in it.
Yeah, you're basically stealing money from the trucker.
Yeah. But so who gets the collateral? The people who put up the contract, the chandelier?
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting trick. So they put something juicy up that somebody wants to transport. As soon as you take the contract, they know who you are and they wait for you and they ambush you and destroy you, and then they get the money that you put up as insurance.
There's a few variations on it, like having the destination being somewhere in, not necessarily in low-sec, but requires you to travel through low-sec. And the other trick they do with that is they make sure that the contract is at least of a size that it can only fit in a freighter. So you're going to have to take this big slow freighter through low-sec, and the chances are you're not going to make it.
So something big and bulky.
Usually like containers or something like that, which is actually another layered trick, because when it's in a container, you can no longer subcontract it to someone else, which is a whole nother kettle of fish.
Which is why you usually swap the actual hauling to a second account, because you don't haul it from the same account that you pick it up from.
That way they don't have your name?
Yeah, because otherwise you can do stuff like this, right? You basically know what trucker picked up what, and he's paid your collateral, and then you kill the trucker in space, and he can't actually finish his job. So what usually is done is that you do a switch. So you basically hand it over to an alt account, usually in an NPC Corp. But even that is usually something that they can figure out. They're pretty much parked specifically for getting those packages.
Interesting. So there's the moves and the counter moves to this. And Blue Frederico says that I had that happen to me in Masaba. So
and it's just a cottage industry.
It's just, again, if you don't know how these things work in the game, you're so open to being a victim to these things. Of course, you mostly only experience it once or twice, but it's still, you need to learn all the workarounds before you can actually play Eve in any meaningful way. Because otherwise you're going to get caught by things like this.
So there's a little like it's almost side career that I know I've done a few times of intentionally spotting these scam contracts, because there's a few things that give them away, and actually completing them, because it's quite amusing. It really pisses off the people that put them up in the first.
Right, because you're taking up their time putting up traps that end up not working. Now, do you defeat them for other people's sake, or do you, because you know how to defeat them, you take them?
Yeah, just because I knew how to do it, and it was really amusing. The one I did was big enough to fit in a regular transporter, like a Badger sigil, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I accepted the contract. I knew it was a scam. I moved the real package to my other character and then had him fly alongside the character that accepted the package in a dummy, empty hauling ship. So they flew side by side. I jumped into the system. There was a bunch of tornadoes waiting. They shot my decoy ship, and the correct ship flew, docked, and delivered the package. And I got that juicy payout, and they got concorded shooting an empty hole.
So they lost money in the ships that they had to sacrifice in order to get that kill.
And the contract reward that they never intended to pay out
got paid out. So you took money from them that they didn't intend to pay out. That's interesting. Good for you, Robin Hood. Okay. Let's go to some of the bigger kills today. We'll go here to a Titan that was killed about 4 hours ago. Belonged to Siseko Squad. Not sure where that corporation's from. It was destroyed by Honorable Third Party and Purple Helmet. Those guys work together in Providence. So this is funny because it popped onto my radar because it was destroyed in a system that we talked about yesterday in Devoid. We described Devoid a few episodes ago, maybe last Thursday. And we were talking about Thakala, which is one of my favorite systems in Devoid, where I used to build capitals because you could move them into Providence rather easily. Well, it looks like Providence attacked that system and took out this Titan. So this Leviathan went down. Lowsec is no joke. If you're out there thinking that it's safer to use a super capital for whatever reason be careful, because once you get tackled, the calls go out for anybody who wants to kill a Titan, and people just volunteer from all over. So even if you're in an area where there's not a lot of aggressive groups, they will still have plenty of time to come get you if you get tangled up with somebody. In this case, HTP are good hot droppers, and they definitely dropped some iron on this Leviathan. They dropped buses and avatars and Ragnaroks, looks like. So other Titans came in to kill this one. In Thakala, in Devoid region.
What's that weird kill in Peregrine Falls with the extra large ship maintenance array? That's a really nice loot pinata someone killed.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit better on June 2nd if it was underpowered. But yeah, some other stuff.
No, it's a ship maintenance array. It's a POS module thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is where they build big ships, right? Oh no, I see what you're saying. It's
yeah, but I don't see any other related kills for that one, which is weird.
It looks like this had a Nyx in it.
Yeah, and again, someone would argue, well, look how POSes are more interesting to actually kill than most other things in the game.
Okay, we'll get into that in a second, but let's actually talk about this kill right now. First of all, it belonged to Fraternity. It was killed by Army of Mango. There only seems to be one ship involved, which seems really weird, because this ship was an Orthrus, which I think is a cruiser. And how a cruiser took this out, this thing must have had a pause shield go down, or they got the password or something, but I think it was exposed. So this shield, this is where they used to build super capitals in the past, these extra large ship maintenance arrays. And these arrays used to be a component of a pause. That's a tower, basically. And looks like this one had a Nyx in it.
Yeah, and as you said, it looks like they must have had the password, right? Because it's the only thing that's destroyed.
Yeah, so it was a targeted strike. It could have been low power, or
unpowered completely. Yeah.
Yeah, unpowered, and that's a huge mistake. That's somebody who forgot they had a Nyx in a place that was eventually going to become vulnerable. And this is how it used to be with pauses. If you had a super in a pause, you got to make sure that stuff was fueled. If it wasn't fueled, it would run out, the shield would drop, and a lot of the stuff in there would become vulnerable. So we don't know what happened here, but it's destroyed by a rather small ship, and that's a pretty hefty destruction at about 20 billion. And that's how much dropped.
Yeah, because the Nyx dropped. Everything pretty much dropped. Again, that's one of the benefits from pause stuff, right?
Yep. We're going back in that direction, aren't we? And now we can talk about what you wanted to.
Well, it's just, there's been a lot of commenting on that big escalated fight over that. I think it was a Titan building pause. This is what we used to have a lot of in the old days, right? When well, the term is abortion. You pretty much try to destroy your opponent's production line of things like supers and titans because they were building pauses, and if you knew where they were built, and then there's of course the historical big bait and switch thing where they attacked the wrong pauses, and it's just that was a very strategic thing in the past.
Set up
we kind of lost that when we got the ability to just reduce them in structures, and structures are so unassailable effectively.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so that belonged to Fraternity. It was destroyed by Army of Mango. It's a nice strike back from Army of Mango that was recently struck by Fraternity. Let's go down these other ship losses. We have from Star Industries Complex, a ship, a freighter that was destroyed by PIRAT. And if we look at that, that happened in a system that is very, very popular. It's maybe 50% of all logistics for the northern nullsec area. It's called Ignoitton. It's actually in Cinque Zone, but it borders Forge, the Forge area, which is where Jita is. So this is 3 or 4 jumps from Jita, and so a lot of freighters go through this place, and it's a very dangerous place, and it's even a little tricky. It's less dangerous than it used to be, because Ignoitton used to be a place that had 2 stations that were far enough apart that you couldn't. I don't think you could actually warp to them. So it was a little bit of a trap. I don't know how to describe it, but they had 2 NPC stations that were far enough away from each other that you couldn't just fly over there. And you couldn't. There was too far to fly over there, and you couldn't warp to it because it was too close. So it was in that sweet spot of not being accessible. So when you tried to go out to it, you could get yourself exposed and destroyed. I think CCP did that on purpose. Anyway, Ignoitton, that is a very dangerous system, but it's heavily used for nullsec supplying and resupplying from Jita. We just covered this Fraternity extra large maintenance array that dropped a Nyx and killed by an Orthrus. Nice kill. Brothers of Tangra lost a Nyx in Mailpas. That's 2XI8. And that is probably a ratting Nyx. Let's have a look. That was taken out by, looks like Snuffed Out captured it. This was, yes. Oh, it was Offline Corporation, which we know is, they're big game hunters. And I think they killed a Nyx just the other day, so they're busy. We talked about the Leviathan in Thakala. That's a Titan ship that was destroyed by HTP. And now we have 2 Nyxes that have just been destroyed, both in, well, one's belonged to Army of Mango, and that was in Omist and System 1I6F. Take a quick look at that one. Yeah, it looks like it was killed by Fraternity.
You didn't want to show the route with the Ignoitton thing and why it's most likely one of those autopilot problems.
Yeah. One last thing. Let's go to this Mailpas has a second ship destroyed. You had the Nyx Destroyed earlier that belonged to Brothers of Tangra, and now you have a second, a Hell destroyed in the same region. And this was again destroyed by Offline Corporation. So they've picked off 2 supers in one day, and the day is not over yet. So look out. They are hunting in Mailpas. You say we should look at the systems. Let's go to Ignoitton, which is actually where I was thinking of dropping a keep star just to help freighters be able to jump into that system and not have to worry so much about getting blown up, because freighters you can pick off really easily. So where it is here, let's actually find it here. We'll zoom in. You can see it's on the border of the forge. So it's the last low-sec system before you start getting into safe high-sec. And you go right into perimeter here after Leon Ostra. So it goes, you're 1 jump out of perimeter, 2 jumps out of, sorry, that's 2 jumps out of perimeter, 3 jumps out of Jita. And it is...
It's an auto route thing, right? If you set route to say to Dixie from Jita, the shortest route will take you through there, right? So it looks like one of those guys that haven't figured out that you have to take the long route to actually be safe.
Yeah. We'll talk about that a different time. I'm not ready to go into it because there's a lot of interesting stuff about that, but I'll get that later. We want to cover this real quick because it's just come to my attention. Thank you guys. Zinitra has been killed from Intrepid Crossing. It has been destroyed by the Darkside. Darkside, I think that's a Russian group. Could be wrong. And I think they've reconstituted recently. The Zinitra was killed in Geminate. That is former Horde territory in 4KF. Let's see. Yeah, it was killed alone, it looks like. There's nothing else with it. Oops, sorry, Intrepid Crossing. Lost Zinitra. Those things are kind of expensive still. This one went for 6.7 billion. And it looks like it was just moving. It didn't have anything in the high slots except an improved cloaking device. So, and it had, inertia stabilizers, which gives it a quicker time into warp. Yeah, so this was definitely moving. It just had Capri chargers, a cloak, and stuffed navigational modules to let it move a little bit faster. But it was picked off. And that was in Geminate. Yeah, so Darkside, I believe, are Russians that haven't been around in a while. Let's have a look at their kill board, see what their activity looks like. They picked off Zinitra, that's pretty good. But it looks like they got Rorqual, Jump Freighters, and some stuff before that. Where are they hunting? Venal, they're definitely in the north. Geminate, Venal. Lots of Venal. Peregrine Falls, so they're... And that would be near their old region if they were from out there in drone regions. So again, Darkside, I've heard they have reconstituted, and I don't want to go into their history because I don't remember specifically if they were part of the coalition that was in BTAC-R. Like that's a long time ago, 2014. There was a big Russian coalition that was fighting, and I think Darkside might have been part of that. I used to get them confused with Darkness, so we'll look into that. Kind of interesting. Okay, let's go real quick to PLEX is down, continues to be down. People want to sell it at about 2,700,000. 1,000 ISK per unit. People want to buy it at about 2,570 ISK per unit. That continues to slump. We'll see if we can show you that on. We've covered this before. There's a lot of discussion about PLEX, why it's slipping, and yeah, but it's this data is outdated, it looks like, but you can see that slump pretty easily there. It continues to go down. And we don't know where the floor is on this, do we?
I think I said somewhere down at about 2 million. I think it might start leveling off, but it can actually go further. Again, this is getting it back to a point where you can play to pay without being the upper 2% income bracket of the game.
What did Cable say that he was thinking of selling off a ton of PLEX?
Well, he bought in at the when it still looked as if it was just a normal dip. He was, I think, he bought in at 2.7 or something, but it's going to go further down. I think you can almost see it. Its trend line is definitely not really slowing down yet. The gap between the 5-day and 20-day moving average is still massive. So it's definitely still dropping.
Yeah, that blue line is the quicker line. That's the faster reactions.
5-day average. And that's Ixical says, bringing it back to 400 million PLEX per month. That was the sweet spot in the past when people pretty much had a real choice of whether or not to play, to pay, or to actually buy it with real money. And then you got that weird experiment with the feature of PLEX trade in Jita 4.4 coming in from the mobile platform, which is exclusive to subs, I think it is. So this is again.
Oh, you got cut off there. All right, looks like the pivot day was April 13th. That's when, because you can see there's a little bit of behavior going on here. First of all, you see the slump. It's hard to see because this thing flies up. It's coming down steadily, and then it hits right about just under 3 million per unit, maybe 2.8, 2.9 million. And that is like, that 3 threshold has been a big, that's kind of like if it's under 3 million per unit you want to buy traditionally. Sorry, yeah, you got cut off. And what happened here is it looked like a normal pattern, like, hey, this thing is hit under 3, let's buy. So you see a huge spike in buying here, it looks like. And you can tell because the medium price goes way up, which means most of the buys were on the higher side rather than the lower, pulling it down. And
that was PLEX for Good, that was.
Is that PLEX for Good?
The launch of PLEX for Good, I think, was on that day.
So you see
why the resistance came back.
Thank you. So that's why it bounced back up. And it bounced over 3 or close to it. But then, over 3. We're talking about median day price. But then after that big buy up for, let's say, PLEX for Good, because that makes a lot of sense. People want to buy a lot of PLEX in order to give it to charity. That artificial lift for PLEX went away and it spiked, or it actually dropped even faster after that. So, and it continues to drop, and now we're in basically a 2.6 million per unit region, which is, we haven't seen that number in ages. Not just 1 year, but maybe 3 years. Maybe
the scary
4.
thing is it's every day it's dropping faster. The rate at the it's dropping is increasing every single day.
That is scary. You can tell, I think a lot of people are starting to run on PLEX now, trying to get out of it. So they're dumping it. They're going to take their loss. If you bought at 3 million and you're selling now at 2.6, you're going to take that loss so that you don't take an even bigger loss if this thing falls to 2.0 or 1.5. Who knows? Who knows where this ends? The acceleration, again, you could tell is the blue line is the faster line, which means if the blue is under the gold line, that the trend is that it's pulling in the direction that the blue is in. I don't know. Let me say that again. Basically, if the blue line is moving faster than the gold line, moving down faster, that means the pressure is that it's selling faster, lower. If the blue line goes through the gold line and goes up, then it's actually trading higher. Someday I'm going to re-say that in a way that is more understandable. But basically, you want to follow the blue line and its relationship with the gold line. Because the blue line can trick you. It's faster. People can manipulate that blue line. So you have to be careful with that too. Okay, last subject that we want to talk about today is Fraternity had their State of the Alliance on April 30th. And after looking at it and analyzing it, it looks like some very interesting things are happening with nullsec in general. And we'll take Fraternity as just insight into what large alliances are looking at these days. Specific to Fraternity is that they're not as active as they were in Detroit, and that makes sense since they were more settled in Detroit. So they had more activity, they had their systems down. They moved over to the drone regions. Actually, what system are they in? I should know this by memory, but let me go back. As soon as I see it, I'll remember. They're now in... Are they in Owasso? I think that's pretty deep in there. And yeah, they're in Owasso. At least a big chunk of them are. And they're just not as organized. They're just not as busy as they were before that. They have cloaky campers who are all over them from all over the place. And they, that kind of creates a problem. Resourcing, because you have basically these these crows sitting on trees looking at you while you're trying to harvest your lands, and those crows are capable of calling in airstrikes basically. So it's a little bit disconcerting to look up and know that you're being watched. So that's called cloaky camping, and it's all over the place in Owasso, so it's slowing them down a little bit. But here's the part that's general, I think, to most alliances is you have a move that's starting to happen where everybody's saying take down the unnecessary structures before those things become loot piñatas and attract people into their area. So you want to clean all that stuff out so that people don't have incentive to travel into your territory. So that's starting to happen, and I think that's happening around the board, around nullsec. But the thing that surprised me, and I haven't quite got my head around it, is they're actually really, really training into super capitals. Now, this may be a natural progression of Fraternity growing into a formidable AAA alliance, basically, like top tier. They're training their pilots on supers. They're saying get into supers. They're high on supers. Supers and dread bombs, and I couldn't figure out why that is since there was a big EHP nerf. So I'll try to figure that out. I think again, we said that it was going to take a while to shake out the theory and the doctrines of these changes that have come in the last few weeks and will come. So a lot of nullsec alliances are right now theoretically figuring out what they want to get into, what ships they want to get into, what tactics they want to get into. And it looks like super capitals are still going to be very popular, especially for military purposes. Also, Fraternity specifically is diversifying, which I think a lot of alliances are doing. They're going to have a bigger wormhole presence. They're going to have a low-sec presence. They're going to get into NPC space in nullsec. And that is a really good sign, diversifying your gameplay, diversifying your income streams. So it's not just ratting and mining. The other thing they're going to do is get into industry and start up an industry department, which is also encouraging, because if nullsec alliances are getting into industry, that's just more opportunity for people to have jobs in EVE Online, which is a good thing. So very interesting stuff going on in nullsec. These changes are starting to filter into the plans that these groups are making. So that was Fraternity, and that was their State of the Alliance. Okay, that's it for me today. Do you guys have anything pressing? If not, let me just quickly run through here and see if there's anything that I've missed. Nope, thanks for that late call on the Zinitra kill. Appreciate that. So that is it for us today. May 4th, may the force be with you, they say. What we'll do now is look for someone to raid. Oh, here's Gank Watch. This is from Wrecking Machine Eve. I've seen him in chat, so reward him with... well, actually, we won't... oh, Daopa's playing. I love watching Daopa. I'm not sure that's for everybody, but I love watching Daopa. I don't see anybody to raid, really, so I'm going to actually take you to Daopa. This is one of my favorite streamers. But I did want to say there is this Gank Watch here, and that is... I believe these are cameras on gates. Well, anyway, this commercial is going to stop us from seeing anything anytime soon. We'll let that play out. All right, just before we go, we'll go back to that channel now. That commercial should be over by now. Jiminy Christmas, what a long commercial. Oh, Mandalorian, most overrated show on TV. Yeah, so apparently these are Gank Watch, I guess is what they call it here at Wrecking Machine, and they show different gates. So I think it's them showing you what they're doing, what they're up to. If you wanted to check out, like, if those gates are clear or not, it might help you in that way. I don't know how these are structured. They're meant to demonstrate the ganking rather than to protect you from it. But there are channels in-game, the hauler channels, that will alert you to travel advisories, basically. So look out for those channels in-game if you want to avoid being ganked, or they'll tell you where the ganking activity is. And these are two cameras on Udama Gate, which is a very popular ganking spot, and so is another gate here is Niarja, which is what we talked about today. So those are the two gates that have a constant camera on them. Okay, everyone, enjoy Daopa, and we will see you tomorrow.